Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, I just wanted to cover a few things talking about Freewheels and talking about cassettes and freewheel tools, lubrication of freewheels, and why the necessity to be careful on the lubrication of freewheels. So first off, let's just for a second just talk about the difference between a freewheel that we have here and a cassette that we have over here. Lots of times we'll see on the Facebook groups people use those terms interchangeably, saying, well, I was working on my cassette, when in reality they're working on a freewheel. More commonly, you will see freewheels in this 7-speed, 6-speed, 8-speed range, and you'll see cassettes going up 9-speed and above. So you'll notice the difference here is that in the case of a cassette, there is no ratcheting mechanism as part of these sprockets. They are all individual pieces or a bonded together section for the low gears, and that's what you get in a cassette. And then it's held on by an attachment sprocket or an attachment at the end. Same freewheel tool is used to extract the cassette parts as it is a freewheel one, and that's a spline tool like this. So the important thing here is to remember these are not the same. You have to be careful using those terms because you'll confuse people if you start talking about your electric bike and say, I was working on the cassette. And you're likely to have someone who knows better than you tell you, oh, you're all wrong. So that's the difference between a freewheel and cassette. When we come over to the freewheel, you'll notice the freewheel has a ratcheting mechanism built into it to allow this to turn backwards freely but engage on the way forward. And so there's some important aspects of that we'll talk about in just a second. But your freewheel can be easily removed using a freewheel extraction tool that goes in and engages those splines to remove it. So you turn it counterclockwise to turn it off. When you put it back on, you can tighten it loosely with your tool, and then your actual pedaling motion will tighten it the rest of the way onto the hub body. You can use some of these other tools, but the problem is on a lot of the newer freewheels, they are fairly deep. So these old style tools that a lot of us have in our toolboxes won't work. They won't reach in and grab the spline significantly enough to ensure they're going to come loose. And they also won't have an axle diameter hole that's large enough to go over the hollow hub axles that we have in our motor drive rear wheels. So you'll have to get one that has a larger center hole. This is a DNP freewheel extraction tool, and that is one that we use. There's a number of Shimano ones available too, Park tool ones that now have these dimensions. So talking about the freewheel consists of a set of bearings underneath this front part of it, a set of bearings on the back part of it, and then there's a series of pawls inside, and those are the pawls that allow it to go backwards but then lock up when you turn it forwards. So this whole thing needs to be lubricated occasionally. Now, let's just say the pawls are sticking in your freewheel. And so what's going to happen when the pawls stick is you'll occasionally hear some vibration in the chain, because when these pawls stick, then the chain is going to pop up and down and maybe bang on the frame, take some paint off your frame if you don't have a frame protector. And that means that the pawl mechanism is starting to bind. When that happens for an electric bike, there is some other things that happen too. One of those is if you're walking your bike forwards, this normally is going to freewheel. If you're walking your bike forwards and the pawls are sticking, it won't freewheel, it will actually turn. And the minute that this turns and it moves the chain slightly up on the front sprockets, depending on how your bike is set up, a torque or cadence sensor or how it's designed, that can make your motor turn on. So you could be innocently walking your bike through a crosswalk across the street and have your e-bike power come on and try and pull the bike out of your hands. So that's why it's always important when you're maneuvering your bike at that kind of situation is to turn off your pedal assist. So take it down to pedal assist 0. But in addition, you want to address that in the freewheel. And that's done by lubricating the freewheel. It's most easily done with it extracted, but you can lubricate it with it on the bike. But I'll show you for if it's extracted, then this crack here, this back seam, the rotating area versus the non-rotating area, that back seam is where you're going to put some lubrication in. And you don't have to put in a whole lot, just a few drops of lubrication, and that will help to free up any binding that's going on in that. Also, you can put in, yeah, it's smoother already. You can put in some in this joint up here. So you can put in some in that area. This is hard to do when the axle is in position, but if you remove the spacers that are on this side and the torque washer that's on there, you may be able to reach in with a needle nose lubrication tool like this Tri-Flow one. Tri-Flow is a good choice for this. I don't recommend it for chains. Works really well on Freewheels. So we've got that Freewheel lubricated. It's a little bit smoother. That's all it really needs. You don't need to pour massive amounts of lubricant through it. If you pour a bunch of lubricant into the front, it's going to sling out the back and vice versa. So you don't want to get carried away on lubricating this, especially if it's on the bike where you can't reach the back to use a rag on it to keep it from flinging onto the rear wheel. It's less of a problem with our bikes because of the hydraulic brakes that are on the other side won't be affected. On rim brake bikes, when the oil slings off of this, goes down the spokes, gets on the rim, you try and stop the bike, it will feel like it's going faster instead of going slower. So those are a few tips for you, and I'll put a link in the description to this Freewheel tool that we like to use, but that'll give you kind of the beginning point to understand better the difference between Freewheels and cassettes. This is Richard from the Steady Pedaler. Thank you very much.